What is up, guys? So I am back after 4 months of not posting any videos on YouTube, and I know it's been quite kind of like a long time. I've been kind of busy with new jobs and new stuff like that on the side, so I do apologize for kind of like the lag in terms of like the video that we're supposed to come out. But yeah, so I kind of just want to talk to you guys about basically from the title of this video, how do I study for 4 languages? But before I talk about the whole reason how I study 4 languages, I just want to take a few steps back and talk to you guys about, you know, which languages I'm studying and why did I decide to choose those languages. And for me, starting off, I'm currently studying Vietnamese, I'm studying Chinese, I'm studying Korean, and I'm also studying Spanish. So that's 4 languages total. And yeah, like a big reason why I kind of like picked all these languages was mainly because I either had some exposure to it like back when I was younger, or I just had like a hardcore interest in either the food or the language. It's kind of strange what I would consider my first language. I feel like because my parents were, you know, they weren't really capable of speaking good English, we always did speak Vietnamese at home, but I would always throw like English words here and there. Yeah, like I would consider my first language probably English. My second language would probably be Vietnamese. That's kind of what I speak with my parents and my family. The next language I would say is probably Spanish. Spanish, I actually studied Spanish for about grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12. So 4 years of Spanish in high school. Now when I look back, I don't know why I decided to pick a language. Like after grade like 9 or 10, you can opt out of learning a language. But I decided to stick through it for 4 years of my high school life. In high school, I just never really had like a connection with Spanish. Like with Vietnamese, it was like, okay, yeah, like I grew up with Vietnamese, and with the other languages that I'll talk about later, basically I love their music and I love their food. And so it was just natural for me to kind of like learn that stuff because I was already kind of surrounding myself in that kind of environment. But with Spanish, I think it's a really well-spoken language, and for me, like I already know basically the basics of Spanish and how to maybe like read basic conversations here and there. And so I figured, you know, I already have this exposure to this language, and I really did enjoy kind of like my class in high school. And so I figured, why not give it a shot and, you know, try to still study a little bit. So, and then next up we have Korean. So you guys already know that I'm learning Korean. I was learning Korean right now. I was reading some stories and it's going pretty well. I was gonna write the TOEIC exam in May, but with the coronavirus and all this other stuff that's happening, I did pause on writing the exam. My ability in Korean has gotten a lot better, I would say, but we'll see how it is in the next few months. And the last language I have on my list that I had the least exposure to is Chinese. And I know that, I think I always told myself like I didn't want to study Chinese just because it was just so hard. Like when I looked at the character, basically if I looked at this character right here, I'd be like, what? Like, do I really want to study this? When I started this whole language journey with just Korean and Vietnamese in the beginning, I didn't really consider learning Spanish, and I didn't really consider learning Chinese, but I feel like in my life down the line, like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I want to be fluent in a couple of languages. And so I figure, you know, I know that a lot of people have preferences in terms of like how they study. Normally people don't study 4 languages at the same time, but then that's different if they're 4 new languages. For me at least, these languages, besides Chinese, are languages that I've had exposure at least for 1 year or more in my life. So it's not new. The only new language that for me right now is probably Chinese. I actually signed up for Chinese school in, so my first class was in like February? Yeah, February. So I was going to Chinese school for about 3 to 4 months, and I was pretty confident in terms of like going to school for like the whole year because they have classes running from like January all the way into December and then repeating the cycle all over again. But because of the situation again, we had to withdraw kind of like all classes, but I went to school for about 3 weeks. It was like a weekly class on the weekends because I have work during the weekday. But no, I learned a lot, and I would definitely recommend going to school if you are someone who gets very distracted. I don't know, like I guess everyone's very different with kind of like how they learn a language, but I would always recommend going to a class in the beginning because it kind of gave me the foundation. That's kind of what happened with Spanish too, because it was all like a classroom environment. Like I went to class, went to like 3rd period, 4th period, 5th period, every day, basically learning Spanish. And so that was kind of that. And I think that was kind of like a good foundation because now when I self-study, like I already know most of the things I'm looking at and reading, which is really nice because if I had to do that for Spanish and Chinese, oh god, like for me, I look at this whole thing that I'm doing with 4 languages as a super long-term thing. So basically in 15 to 10 years, I really want to be fluent in all these languages, and I want to be able to travel a lot more and connect with more people and to do business in different languages as well and see how that works. And yeah, I think the whole world is a lot bigger than you think it might be, and learning a language definitely does keep yourself very open-minded, and I'm really willing to kind of do that. And yeah, so that's why I really wanted to study all those languages. We have 5 total that I want to be super fluent in by, I don't know, like 2030 maybe. We'll see. And the next, I guess the last question is probably, how do I study for all this stuff? And to be as brutally honest with you guys, I am very disciplined in the sense that for my personality and the way I study languages, I always have a schedule. And I actually have a planner. So plan 2019 to 2020. So basically, I would say like very early stages, like I didn't use this that much, but like I would literally write, like for example, in was this like August last year, I think. Yeah, August last year. So I would have like Korean, Vietnamese, Korean, Vietnamese, Korean, Vietnamese, Korean, Vietnamese, Korean, Vietnamese. And this is before I started taking on Spanish and Chinese. And then back when I started Chinese school, that's when I got a little more serious. So I'll be honest with you guys as well with this. For me, my resources flip-flop all the time. Like I don't always have a set kind of like standard, like which things work well and which things work not so well. And it's because like for me, when I language learn, I try to take kind of like the practical knowledge of languages. So when I was studying Korean, I always preached talk to me Korean, and I always preached how to study Korean.com. So those were like my kind of like the 2 things that I always used, and they were super helpful. But I think now I've been kind of like moving away from that stuff, and I've been using more like story-based stuff that were kind of like shown actual like proved examples of how that Korean knowledge is being applied. So whether it's in this book or in another textbook as well that has just like short stories and stuff, I found myself like studying a lot more stories, and it was really helpful because I think, you know, studying grammar for like step-by-step process for a long period of time can get pretty boring. Like, to be honest, it can get pretty boring. And so I did this a lot, and then I also tried to text people in Korean and talk to them in Korean, which is really a challenge for me. But I think that it's definitely helped me a lot because these guys that I do text and that I communicate with, whether it's on an app or on a website or a platform, a forum, they're generally like really nice about like explaining things and supporting me with kind of like my goals and stuff. So yeah, I've been doing that for Korean. And in Spanish, I have this like beginner Spanish textbook that I'm just kind of going through right now because I just want to refresh, because I just want to like refresh my Spanish knowledge. So I'm going through all the basic stuff first. And Vietnamese, my aunt actually gave me a bunch of books from Vietnam, and they're also like very like short stories as well. Like this one is like a short story book. or like riddles actually. And I like this one because this one actually has like Chinese and Vietnamese, so it really does like force me to move away from using English as like a backbone language. So these, and there's like 10 more on my shelf that I just don't want to pull out, but basically I got a lot of books for this, so we're good on that. And for Chinese, before we stopped having class, I was actually using a textbook that my teacher was recommending for everyone to use, because she basically stripped all her Chinese notes and her lessons from the textbook, and it's the HSK1. If you guys are curious, I am planning to take HSK, hopefully if the situation kind of calms down, in October. So that's pretty much wraps this video. I wanted to answer the question of like, how do I study foreign languages and why exactly am I studying foreign languages? Anyway guys, so I'm probably gonna go and start studying some Korean now, and yeah, I can't promise when I'll upload a video next, but I just wanted to just say hi and hope you guys are all doing well and hope you guys are safe. Do keep yourself kind of like safe, clean, self-isolated if you can. And yeah, just keep yourself protected, and you know, we'll get through this together. See ya!